If you love Sleep Tight Relax, then check out Story Pillar, a podcast for kids and their grown-ups. Help Sneak, Bean, and Meg tackle sticky social situations, explore stories from all over the world, and pick up great advice from listeners, like you. They also save plenty of time for laughing and being silly. So, if you've got feelings, love stories, and are up for a fart joke or 10, Story Pillar is definitely worth a listen. Check it out at www.storypillar.com or wherever you love listening to podcasts. Hello, I'm Sheryl, and this is Sleep Tight Relax, a calming bedtime show for the young and young at heart. In our story, Oliver, a forgetful boy living on a Canadian farm, learns about responsibility when Santa leaves him a list of forgotten tasks instead of presents. After a special Christmas at his grandfather's house, where he finds the items he wished for, Oliver understands the importance of giving and being responsible. He starts doing his chores without being reminded and becomes more attentive and helpful. Before we listen to our story, let's get cozy and comfortable. You can close your eyes if you like. Let's take a moment for some deep belly breaths. Take a slow, deep breath in through your nose, as big a breath as you can and as slow as you can. Then slowly let the air out through your mouth. Try it again. Take a deep breath in and let the air slowly flow out. Take a deep breath in and now out. It always feels great to just focus on your breath. Continue practicing your belly breaths as long as you like while we share our story. Oliver's Christmas. In the midst of Canada's winter wonderland, where snowflakes weave a blanket of sparkling white over sprawling fields, lies the small but spirited Hawthorne farm. The farm in rural Canada's heartland, with its cozy red barn and a farmhouse wreathed in gentle smoke from the chimney, is home to cows, pigs, goats, chickens, and a young, kind boy named Oliver. Oliver, with his untamed mop of chestnut hair and a pair of glasses perpetually perched on his nose, is a junior high school student known for three things: his kind, generous spirit, his imagination, and his forgetfulness that's as legendary as the farm's 100-year-old apple pie recipe. He's the kind of person who would give you the shirt off his back in the dead of winter, even if it meant he'd shiver in the cold, which was often the case, considering his aversion to itchy winter sweaters and love for threadbare tees. That is, if he wasn't distracted first. There are many tales of Oliver's forgetfulness, but one in particular always brings a chuckle around the farm. It was the time Oliver was tasked with fetching eggs from the chicken coop. But Oliver, lost in thoughts of the latest superhero movie, ended up in the barn, mesmerized by a family of barn owls. By the time he returned to the house, not only were his hands empty, but he was also convinced he'd discovered a secret owl society planning to take over the farm. His parents couldn't help but laugh as they listened to his elaborate tale, the forgotten eggs a mere afterthought in Oliver's grand adventure. As Christmas nears, the farm, usually a place of quiet but for the cows and chickens, is abuzz with festive preparations. Christmas is always a time of celebration for Oliver's family, with lots of pumpkin and apple pies and cookies and sweets baked. But for Oliver, the season's excitement lies in one thing and one thing only: his Christmas list for Santa. Seated at the family's old oak kitchen table, Oliver scribbles excitedly. His list is long and full of wishes and wants, each item bigger and more expensive than the last. From the latest tech gadgets to the latest elaborate Lego, his list is a stark contrast to the simple rustic life his family leads on the farm. But Oliver's world, though filled with dreams, often needs to catch up when it comes to the day-to-day realities of farm life. Everyone must contribute on a small farm like theirs, and everyone has responsibilities. Chores are like fleeting thoughts to Oliver, here one moment and gone the next, lost in the whirlwind of his ever-wandering mind. His parents, loving and patient, watch with amusement and concern as Oliver navigates life uniquely, always one step behind his responsibilities. Oliver's forgetfulness is as much a part of him as his generous nature. It's not uncommon to find the chickens still waiting for their morning feed as Oliver loses himself in the latest adventure novel, or the barn tools left out in the night's frost because a fascinating bug caught his attention. It's a trait that brings a certain charm to his character, but also a frustration to those who rely on him. As the Yuletide spirit envelops Hawthorne Farm, Oliver's parents ponder over a plan. This Christmas, they decide, will be different. It will be a Christmas that teaches Oliver not just the value of remembering, but the joy of giving, the warmth of being a part of a family, and the satisfaction that comes from fulfilling one's work. One frosty morning, Oliver's dad asked him to bring a jug of milk from the barn for breakfast. With thoughts already swirling about what Santa might bring him, Oliver nodded absent-mindedly and headed out. However, on his way, he got distracted by a peculiar set of tracks in the snow. Convinced they belonged to a rare, possibly mythical creature, he followed them around the farm, completely forgetting about the milk. When he finally returned, hands empty, but with an animated story about tracking a snow beast, his parents couldn't help but laugh at his wild imagination, even as they sipped their black coffee. Oliver's next task was to help stack hay bales in the barn. He started enthusiastically enough, piling up a couple of bales, but then his phone buzzed with a notification about a new game update, and he was lost in the game. Hours later, his father found him, phone in hand, surrounded by a half-finished job, and a very puzzled goat who had decided the hay bale tower was its new throne. Oliver's forgetfulness wasn't just limited to chores. It was his grandfather's birthday, and the family had planned a special dinner. Oliver was in charge of getting the birthday cake from the local bakery. He set off with a reminder set on his phone, but he got engrossed in a chat with a friend about Christmas gifts. He walked home later, cheerful and oblivious, until he saw the expectant faces awaiting the cake that wasn't there. His grandfather chuckled and ruffled Oliver's hair, saying, "Well, I guess this year I'll age a little slower without the cake. Oliver's responsibility also extended to caring for Rex, the family's energetic border collie. One evening, after being reminded to feed Rex, Oliver got distracted by a superhero movie marathon. Feeling neglected and hungry, Rex decided to go on an adventure and managed to sneak out. The entire family embarked on a frantic search, only to find Rex at the neighbor's farm, happily munching on their dog's dinner. Oliver's relief at finding Rex safe was mixed with embarrassment over his forgetfulness, making him realize that his actions had consequences. As the December days became shorter and the nights grew longer, the Hawthorne farm was wrapped in anticipation of the special day to come. Christmas lights twinkled in the windows, and a fresh pine tree stood in the living room, waiting to be decorated. Oliver, more engrossed in his Christmas list than ever, barely noticed the festive transformation of the farm. His list had grown longer, filled with every new gadget and game he could think of. He spent hours debating the merits of one toy over another, completely oblivious to the seasonal activities happening around him. One chilly evening, Oliver's parents sat him down for a chat in the cozy living room, the fireplace crackling softly in the background. They gently broached the topic of his growing Christmas list and his forgetfulness. With a kind smile, his mother reminded him of the joy of giving and sharing during Christmas, rather than just receiving. His dad added, humorously, recounting some of Oliver's more amusing forgetful moments, but stressing the importance of being mindful and helpful, especially during the holiday season. As a family, they decided to decorate the Christmas tree together. Initially reluctant to tear himself away from his phone, Oliver found himself drawn into the laughter and stories shared as they hung ornaments and strung lights. Each ornament had a story, and as his parents and grandfather recounted tales of Christmases past, Oliver began to see the holiday in a new light, less about the gifts and more about the time spent with loved ones. The farm was a flurry of activity in the days leading up to Christmas Eve. Oliver was given small, manageable tasks, from wrapping gifts for the local charity drive to helping bake cookies for the neighbor. Slowly, he started taking part without the usual reminders, the spirit of the season gently nudging him toward a newfound sense of responsibility. On Christmas Eve, it was a family tradition to share stories and express gratitude for the year gone by. As they gathered around the fire, Oliver listened to his family's tales of gratitude and goodwill. When it was his turn, he found himself speaking less about what he hoped to receive and more about the fun and warmth of the recent days spent with family. It was a small shift in perspective, but a significant one for Oliver. Long before the first light of dawn had a chance to peek through his window, Oliver was wide awake with the excitement of Christmas morning. His room, usually a mess of scattered clothes and gadgets, was tidily organized, a change he had started to embrace in the past few days. Today, he would find out if Santa had granted his extensive wish list. After rubbing sleep from his eyes, Oliver tiptoed down the wooden stairs, careful not to wake the rest of the family. The house was quiet, but for the gentle ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. As he reached the living room, The sight of the twinkling Christmas tree and stockings filled with presents brought a wide grin to his face. Oliver rushed to his stocking, his heart racing with anticipation. He saw it was stuffed with shapes and bulges that promised exciting gifts. With eager hands, he reached in, expecting to pull out a toy or a gadget, but instead, his fingers closed around a piece of paper. Puzzled, he drew it out and unfolded it. It was a list, different from the one he had written for Santa. This list was much longer, detailing every chore and task Oliver had forgotten over the past 6 months. Each item was meticulously noted, followed by the familiar phrase, "I forgot." The list ended with those same words written in bold, glaring capitals. "I forgot." Oliver's initial confusion slowly turned into a sinking realization. His eyes watered as he looked at the list, a stark reminder of his forgetfulness. The excitement of Christmas morning was now tinged with a sense of disappointment and self-awareness. He sat there for a moment, the list in his hands, trying to process this unexpected turn. After a few moments, Oliver's mother entered the room. She noticed the list in his hands and his sad, disappointed look. Sitting beside him, she wrapped an arm around his shoulders. "Oliver," she began softly, "Santa wanted to remind you of something important this Christmas." Oliver nodded, fighting back tears. He understood now. This was not a punishment, but a lesson. A lesson in remembering, in being responsible. His mother continued, "We all forget things, sometimes, Oliver. But remembering to care for others and fulfill our promises is a gift too, a very important one." Just then, Oliver's father joined them, their faces a mix of empathy and cheer. "Don't worry, kiddo," his dad said reassuringly. "Christmas isn't over yet. There's more to this day. Let's have breakfast, and then we have a special trip planned." Oliver managed a small smile, grateful for his family's support. The list lay forgotten on the floor as he joined his family in the kitchen, ready to embrace the rest of Christmas Day. After a breakfast filled with the aroma of cinnamon and fresh bread, pancakes and bacon, Oliver's family gathered their coats and scarves for a trip to his grandfather's house. The morning's disappointment still lingered in Oliver's heart, but the promise of a special visit piqued his curiosity. The short drive was filled with light-hearted chatter, but Oliver's mind was elsewhere, replaying this morning's revelations. He stared out the window, watching the snow-covered fields and frosty trees pass by, a landscape of winter wonder that usually filled him with joy. Upon arriving, Oliver's grandfather greeted them with his usual booming laughter and warm hugs. The old house, a larger version of their own, was adorned with festive decorations, and the air was thick with the scent of pine and a hint of wood smoke. Come in," his grandfather beckoned, leading them to the living room, where a magnificent Christmas tree stood, its lights twinkling merrily. Oliver's eyes widened as he saw the tree, not just because of its beauty, but because there were various gifts and trinkets hanging from its branches, some of which looked very familiar. "Go on, take a look," his grandfather urged, with a twinkle in his eye. As Oliver approached, he began to recognize items from his Christmas list: the model airplane kit, the science experiment set, and even the latest comic book he longed for. Each item was there, hanging as ornaments or tucked neatly beneath the tree. Oliver turned to his family, a mix of surprise and confusion on his face. His mother smiled softly. Santa may have reminded you about forgetting, but he also wanted you to remember the joys of Christmas. His grandfather added, and to show you that the spirit of giving and receiving is about more than just a list. It's about being present in every sense of the word. Oliver's father chimed in. We all pitched in. These gifts are from us too. We wanted this Christmas to be memorable for the right reasons. Grandpa, with wise, twinkling eyes, beckoned Oliver closer. You see, Oliver, each of these gifts represents something more than just the thing to be given and received. They are reminders of the care we put into choosing something special for someone we love. This year, we wanted you to see that the real joy of Christmas lies in the thought and the love behind each gift. Oliver listened, his usual restlessness replaced by a rapt attention. He looked at each gift, seeing them now not as mere objects of desire, but as tokens of his family's understanding and affection. The comic book was not just a comic book, but a nod to his love for stories. The model airplane wasn't just a toy, but a recognition of his fascination with how things worked. His parents joined in, sharing their thoughts behind each chosen gift. His mother spoke of the time spent finding the perfect science set that would fuel his curiosity and love for learning. His father laughed about searching for the exact model airplane kit Oliver had mentioned months ago. Oliver's heart swelled with joy and a slight pang of guilt. He realized how much effort his family had put into making this Christmas special for him, despite his frequent forgetfulness. I'm sorry for forgetting so much, he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. I didn't see how much you all do for me. His grandfather ruffled his hair affectionately. That's part of growing up, Oliver, recognizing and appreciating what we have. This Christmas, you've given us a gift too, the gift of seeing you understand and appreciate. The rest of the evening was spent in a merry blur of laughter, stories, and the sharing of gifts. Oliver felt a new sense of responsibility, not as a burden, but as something joyful. He was part of this family, and his actions contributed to their happiness, just as theirs did to him. As they prepared to leave, Grandpa pulled Oliver aside. Remember, the best gifts aren't always things. They are memories, time spent together, and the love we share. Keep that in your heart, not just for Christmas, but all year round. Oliver nodded. He hugged his grandfather, promising to remember. The drive home was quiet, but Oliver's mind was loud with thoughts and resolutions. He was already planning how to be more helpful and present, not just at home, but with everyone he cared about. The days following Christmas at Hawthorne Farm saw a subtle but noticeable change in Oliver. The boy who was once known for his forgetfulness began to show signs of a newfound sense of responsibility. It started with small things. He remembered to feed Rex without being reminded, diligently completed his chores around the farm, and even began to keep his room tidier than before. One crisp, clear morning, Oliver's mother found him in the kitchen, preparing breakfast for the family. Surprised, she watched as Oliver flipped pancakes with a concentration she hadn't seen in him before. "Thought I'd do something nice for everyone," Oliver said with a smile. At school, Oliver's teachers noticed a change too. He became more attentive in class. His homework was consistently completed on time, and he even volunteered to help organize the school's winter festival. But the real test came one busy afternoon on the farm. Oliver's father had to leave urgently to help a neighbor, and several important tasks needed to be done on the farm. Oliver stepped up without hesitation, assuring his father he could handle things. When his father returned that evening, he found all the chores done perfectly. Oliver had not only remembered to do them all, but had also done them with great care. As they sat down for dinner that night, Oliver's grandfather raised his glass for a toast. To Oliver, who has shown us that the greatest gifts are those we find within ourselves: responsibility, care, and love. The family echoed the sentiment, their faces beaming with pride and affection. As winter gave way to spring, Oliver continued to embrace his responsibilities, not just as a duty, but as a part of who he was. His forgetfulness never entirely disappeared, but it no longer defined him. Instead, he was known for his kindness, willingness to help, and ability to remember what truly mattered. If you are still awake, I would like you to whisper to yourself or just say in your mind, "I understand the joy of giving and helping others, which makes me and those around me happy. I am important and valued in my family, and my actions make a positive difference." Every day, I grow and learn new things, becoming a better version of myself. I am calm, relaxed, and peaceful. Sleep tight.